Welcome to the Tristan channel, your gateway to a world of fascinating subjects ranging from folklore, history, sci-fi, and the paranormal to film entertainment. Here we explore all kinds of captivating topics that will leave you intrigued and eager for more. Delve into the depths of ancient myths and legends. Unravel the secrets of historical events. Immerse yourself in the realms of imagination with sci-fi wonders and explore the unexplained mysteries of the paranormal. Join us on this exciting journey where we bring you the best of folklore, history, sci-fi, and the supernatural, all wrapped up in the enchantment of film entertainment. Stay tuned for enlightening discussions, thrilling narratives, and endless possibilities as we unravel the unknown together. This is the Tristan channel, your doorway to a world beyond imagination.
Hello everyone! Today's video explores a topic often overlooked in mainstream historical narratives, the role of trans women and gender-diverse people more broadly in the struggle for women's rights. We will examine the suffragette era, trace the evolution of gender variance across history, and consider how trans women have consistently contributed to liberation movements, often at great personal risk. Setting the stage. What do we mean by trans women in history? Before we begin, it's important to clarify something. The term transgender is modern. People in earlier centuries did not use this language, but that does not mean they didn't exist. Across cultures and time periods, there have always been individuals who lived outside rigid binary gender roles. In historical research, this presents a challenge. We often must interpret records carefully, looking at people assigned male at birth who lived, dressed, or identified socially as women, or who challenged gender norms in ways that align with what we would now understand as trans identity. The suffragette movement. A complex landscape. The suffragette movement of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, particularly in Britain and the United States, was not a single unified force. It included militant activists demanding immediate voting rights, moderate reformers working within political systems, and socialists linking suffrage to broader class struggle. While most historical accounts focus on cisgender women, the movement itself was shaped by people challenging norms, not only of gender, but of class, sexuality, and identity. Although explicit records of openly trans women in the suffragette movement are scarce, largely due to social repression and lack of recognition, gender non-conforming individuals did participate in political activism of the era. Some lived in ways that blurred or crossed gender boundaries, even if historians have not always recognized or recorded them as such. Early gender nonconformity and political resistance. Throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries, there are documented cases of individuals assigned male at birth living as women, sometimes openly, sometimes discreetly. These individuals often faced legal persecution, social ostracism, and violence. Yet, many still engaged in public life, including activism. Gender nonconformity itself was, and still is, a political act. To live authentically in defiance of rigid gender expectations inherently challenges the same patriarchal structures that suffragettes fought against. Shared struggles, patriarchy, and gender policing. The suffragette movement was fundamentally about resisting patriarchal control, systems that dictated who could vote, who could own property, who had bodily autonomy, and what roles women could occupy. Trans women, historically and today, face these same structures, often in intensified ways. For example, laws controlling clothing and presentation, medical gatekeeping over bodies, and exclusion from public and political spaces. This overlap means that trans women's struggles are not separate from women's liberation. They are deeply intertwined with it. So, as we move into the mid-20th century, trans women become more visible in activism, especially in movements tied to gender and sexual liberation. The key themes of this era include resistance to police harassment, advocacy for bodily autonomy, and community organizing among marginalized groups. Trans women were often on the front lines of protests, not because they were always welcomed, but because they had the least protection and, honestly, the most at stake. One of the clearest examples of trans women leading liberation movements comes from the late 1960s. At the Stonewall Uprising in New York in 1969, trans women, especially trans women of color, played a crucial role in resisting police brutality. This moment, became a catalyst for the modern LGBTQ+ rights movement. Figures like Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson are often highlighted as key activists who organized protests, supported homeless queer youth, and challenged exclusion within feminist and gay rights spaces. Their activism extended beyond LGBTQ+ issues into broader struggles for social justice, including women's rights, housing, and poverty. It would be incomplete to tell this story without acknowledging conflict. Some minorities in feminism, particularly in the late 20th century, such as TERFs or GERMs, excluded trans women, arguing that womanhood was defined strictly by biology. This, unfortunately, created divisions within the movement, and it reduces women down to body parts and not people. Or, as the expression goes, walking incubators. However, the majority of feminists and scholars have argued the opposite, that trans women's experiences reveal the constructed nature of gender roles, actually strengthening feminist critiques of patriarchy. Today, intersectional feminism increasingly recognizes that gender oppression affects people differently depending on identity, and liberation movements must include all women, including trans women. In contemporary activism, trans women continue to play really vital roles in areas like reproductive rights advocacy, anti-violence campaigns, workplace equality movements, and healthcare access initiatives. They often highlight issues that impact all women, such as bodily autonomy, gender-based violence, and economic inequality. At the same time, trans women bring attention to specific challenges, including discrimination in healthcare, legal recognition, and safety in public spaces. There are several reasons trans women's contributions have been, overlooked in history. Historical records used outdated or incorrect labels, and society often discouraged open gender nonconformity. Later historians sometimes interpreted figures through binary assumptions, and marginalized voices were frequently excluded from official narratives. As a result, the story of women's liberation has often been told in a way that is, narrower than reality. When we examine the long history of women's rights movements, a pattern emerges. Liberation has always been driven by those most marginalized. Those who challenge norms most directly often push change the fastest. Progress is rarely neat or unified. It's complex, contested, and always evolving. Trans women have been part of this story, not always named, not always recognized, but consistently present. Their contributions remind us that the fight for women's rights is not just about inclusion in existing systems, it's about transforming those systems entirely. If we expand our understanding of history to include trans women and gender-diverse people, we don't just add new characters. We gain a deeper, more accurate picture of how social change actually happens. And that picture shows something powerful, that the struggle for women's liberation has always been broader, more diverse, and more interconnected than we are often taught.